Hello and welcome to another edition of Paydirt Remote. I'm your host, Dominic Piper. Today I'm joined by S2 Resources Managing Director, Mark Bennett. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Dom.
Mark, you just put out an exploration update just after Easter, which showed S2 returning to your old stamping ground, Paydirt in WA, and you've also got some new ground in the Fraser Range. At Polar Bear, we'll start with. You're on the hunt for now, a little bit of gold last time. Were you happy with the results you had from that recent program?
When we sold Polar Bear to Westgold, which is now owned by RNC Minerals, we kept the nickel rights because we like the nickel ground down there. It's the continuation of the Widgie-Malta stratigraphy that Mincor have been having success with Cassini in recently. And we're sort of on a nice big fat lava channel Kambalda style thing, which is what you want. And we don't have mineable grades and widths yet, but we're getting a lot of disseminated sulfides and zones of up to a couple of meters at 2 or 3% nickel, and we just had 8 meters at I think 1.3% the other day. So it's a live lava channel with nickel in it. You've just got to chase it, and we've sort of chased it down 400 meters so far, and we probably just need to keep going.
On the Fraser Range, you've moved back in there after a long absence. You've pegged ground near, quite close to Mawson's discovery. How did you manage to find any more prospective ground in the Fraser Range?
It's a sort of a funny story in that Mark Creasy had 4 big E's that had come to the end of their life, and he had to drop them. And the day they expired, we pegged them, but we found that in some cases up to 15 other people pegged it as well. So those 4 blocks went to a ballot, and we didn't really expect to, see much out of that because there was a lot of competition, but we won 3 out of the 4 ballots, and we ended up with 3 exploration license applications in the Fraser Range again, 2 of which have now been granted and 1 shouldn't be too far away. So we're back in our old hunting ground, and we're sort of nestled midway between IGO's Nova mine and Legends Mawson prospect, where they've been getting some good nickel hits recently as well. So we're sort of, we've already started our first bit of exploration there, and we'll be cracking away at that for the next little while, given that we can still operate relatively freely in WA, unlike some of our other areas. Nickel's
really a hot exploration topic in Western Australia at the minute, as you mentioned, Legend. We've also seen Chalice at Julimar. You've also extended your nickel outlook, if you like. You've pegged some ground in it's north of Perth at 3 Springs, and then even further north up in the Meekatharra district, I believe. Can you explain why you've...
Yeah, so I guess like the Fraser Range sort of borders the southeastern side of the Yilgarn, all up the west coast of WA is the sort of Darling Fault, and that's the western border of the Yilgarn as well. And nobody had really thought that was prospective for nickel sulfide until Chalice made their astounding find the other week. And we'd been prowling around looking at things. Then when news broke of Julimar, we thought we better act quickly and pegged a few of the things we'd been sniffing around. So we've ended up with 2 fairly big areas up the west coast, one, as you say, near 3 Springs, and one further up in the northwest Murchison, based on the government magnetics and other data, which shows that there are ultramafic intrusions up there. But I guess when they were mapped, nobody ever thought of nickel because this was well pre-Nova days. So the whole sort of paradigm has changed now. So maybe up the west coast, a bit like in the Fraser Belt on the southeast coast, there's a lot of potential for nickel sulfide deposits too, a bit like the mid-continental rift in the US and southern Canada.
Yeah, it's certainly seen a spark of activity, and there's other companies pegged ground around there. It's going to be an interesting few months along that whole edge of the Yilgarn Craton, as you explained. But a couple of months ago, before you started working the Fraser and before you put them results out from Polar Bear, you were active in Scandinavia, in Finland. You were pushing hard there, in fact. was it the COVID-19 pandemic that forced that switch, or was there other reasons for it?
Yeah, well, I guess global calamities of one sort or another. First of all, we're going to drill the extensions of our Arnavalkia gold prospect over the winter, but the Arctic wouldn't freeze this winter. Yeah, whether it's climate change or weather events, I'm not sure, but it was certainly, it put a spanner in our works. But what we did is, because we couldn't do that, we went prospecting about 2 kilometres east of there and found an entirely new gold trend. And we were literally one day from the rig drilling it, and we had to make the tough call to postpone it and pull everybody out, because we've got people from Ireland, Belgium, Finland, Poland, who could have been stranded in the Arctic with border closures and flight cancellations. So that was pretty frustrating, but it's still there. And hopefully when we get through the other side of this, we can get back in there and we'll put it on ice, so to speak. And then when it defrosts next winter, we can go back and hopefully chase that up.
Yeah, what's the attraction with Scandinavia and Finland in particular? It seems it's got a long history of mining, but Aussies have flitted in and out there on the exploration front. Why is that?
Well, it's not easy. It's seasonally constrained with snow on the ground for half to 2/3 of the year. It's heavily forested. Regulations are such that you can't just waltz in there like you can in Nowheresville in WA and drill a hole. You have to go through a few hoops. So it's a slow process, and it's only for the people who really want to persist. And I guess that's made it primarily the territory of the bigger guys who've got longer time frames. We got in relatively early and stitched up probably a quarter of the belt, which is good, which is why we're persisting. And it's a bit like, to me, like the Birimian in West Africa was 20 odd years ago, when there was the Ashanti gold mine and not a lot else, and a bunch of Canadian juniors prowling around. And now West Africa is a pretty big gold producing region. And these rocks in northern Finland are the same age and the same style as West Africa. So we believe there's a lot of endowment there. It's just untapped as yet, but only for the people who are prepared to sort of do the hard yards.
I'm sure comparing it to West Africa will get a few people, prick the ears of a few people.